Welcome to the Geostrategic Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Deep Dive. We really appreciate you tuning in, whether you're listening on your commute or watching us here in the studio. We have a massive topic today. I mean, literally massive in terms of tonnage. So let's get right to it. What if I told you China is now building submarines faster than the United States? Between 2021 and 2025, Beijing launched more boats and more total tonnage than Washington. According to the International Institute for Strategic Studies, the numbers are clear: 10 Chinese submarines versus 7 American. But here's the real question. Does quantity change the balance of power, or does U.S. undersea dominance still hold? Today, we break down the production surge, the nuclear dimension, and what this means for the future of naval warfare in the Pacific. Before we dive in, hit like if you follow global strategy, subscribe for in-depth defense analysis, and share this with someone who tracks U.S.-China competition. And I want to hear from you. Is this a strategic turning point or just headline hype? Drop your take in the comments. Let's debate this. Okay, let's unpack this right away.
I think for a lot of people, the narrative has always been that the U.S. has this, insurmountable lead.
Right.
The biggest Navy, especially with high-tech stuff like submarines. But you see these numbers, 10 boats versus 7 in just 4 years, and it really feels like the ground is shifting.
It is shifting. There's no doubt about that. And honestly, while the 10 boats number grabs your attention, it's the tonnage that really woke people up.
Ah, the tonnage.
Yeah, that's the metric that, according to the latest analysis out of London, made the analysts spill their coffee.
I saw that figure, 79,000 tons for China versus 55,000 for the U.S. Why does the weight matter so much? I mean, isn't a sub just a tube that goes underwater? Why is heavier better?
That's a great question. In the naval world, tonnage usually translates directly to capability. A heavier boat means more volume.
More space.
Exactly. More space for fuel, which means longer range. More space for provisions, so you can stay submerged longer. And, critically, more room for weapons and sensors and the equipment that makes you quiet.
So we're not just saying they built more metal. We're saying they're putting more capability in the water.
Precisely. These aren't just small coastal patrol boats. These are massive blue water leviathans designed to go deep and stay there.
That's a huge gap. So the obvious question is how? I mean, the U.S. has been building nuclear subs for decades. How does Beijing suddenly turn on a tap and outproduce them?
Well, it wasn't sudden, and that's the scary part. It was methodical. If you look at the satellite analysis of the Bohai Shipbuilding Heavy Industry Company.
Sorry, Bohai. That's the shipyard.
Right. It's this massive facility in Huludao, kind of like the Newport News of China. The analysis shows that between 2019 and 2022, this place just transformed.
Transformed how? Like new equipment?
We are talking about physical infrastructure on a colossal scale. They basically built a second factory right next to the first one, a brand new, massive submarine assembly hall.
A second hall?
Yes. And this isn't just a warehouse. Building a nuclear submarine is probably one of the most complex engineering tasks on Earth. You need these specialized climate-controlled environments
To handle the reactor components and everything.
Exactly. And this expansion effectively doubled their theoretical capacity overnight.
It's like a car company just built a second plant next door and switched the lights on.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And that's what allowed them to hit that 10-boat figure. They built the factory first, and now the conveyor belt is moving fast.
So the machine is running, but what's coming out of it? You said tonnage implies capability. Are these 10 generic subs, or is there something more specific going on?
And this is where we move from industrial stats to nuclear strategy, because the mix of vessels tells us a lot. The latest reports highlight that this run includes the 7th and 8th Type 094 submarines.
The Type 094, that's the Jin class.
All right.
The Jin class.
And what's the job of a Jin-class boat? Is it a hunter?
No. These are SSBNs, nuclear-armed ballistic missile submarines.
The doomsday machines.
Precisely. Their job is to disappear into the ocean and hold the threat of a nuclear strike against another nation.
This is the triad concept we always hear about.
Exactly. Land, air, and sea. And the sea leg is the most important part. Why is that? If you have missiles on land.
Survivability. Land silos can be targeted. Air bases can be hit. But a submarine hidden somewhere in the deep Pacific? It's incredibly hard to find and kill. It guarantees you can strike back. It's the ultimate insurance policy.
So adding a 7th and 8th boat is just making sure the policy never lapses.
Yes. It lets them keep at least 1, maybe 2 on patrol, 204/7, 365. It changes the entire strategic calculus.
So do we know for sure they have these, or is this just speculation?
It's more than that. We have eyes on them. Commercial satellite imagery from, just early this year, 2026, confirms 6 Type 094s.
6 visible at one time.
It's rare, but they're distributed. We've seen them at the Bohai shipyard, but also at operational bases like Jiangazhuang, the Xiaopingdao test facility, and down south at Yalong Bay on Hainan Island.
So they're active, not just sitting in dry dock.
Very active, and the analysts did the math. If you can see 6 on satellite, and you account for the boats that are probably underwater on patrol or maybe in a covered pen for maintenance.
Then the math says there must be 8.
Exactly. It's almost certain the 7th launched in 2024 and the 8th in 2025.
Okay, that covers the 2 big missile boats. But the total was 10. What about the other 8 coming off that new assembly line?
The rest of the surge is made up of the fighters, the hunter-killers. We're seeing a significant number of the Type 093B boats.
The Shang 3.
Right, the Shang 3. The latest info suggests 9 of these were launched between 2022 and 2026.
Wait, 9? 9 plus the 2 missile boats is 11.
The timelines overlap a bit, but yes, the production rate is accelerating. And just this month, February 2026, there was a launch of an entirely new class, the Type 09V.
Okay, a new mystery boat. Let's stick with the 093D for a second. What makes the B model different?
It's a massive hardware upgrade. The headline feature is the VLS, the Vertical Launch System.
Which lets them fire missiles straight up while submerged. The U.S. does this too, right?
They do, but here's the crucial difference, and it tells you everything about their intent. When the U.S. Navy puts a VLS on a submarine, they typically load it with Tomahawks.
Land attack missiles.
Right. The U.S. strategy is power projection, hitting a target 500 miles inland.
Taking the fight to them.
Exactly. But the Chinese plan, their Navy, seems to be taking a totally different approach. All the info suggests these Type 093Bs are loading their VLS tubes with anti-ship missiles.
To kill other ships?
Specifically, weapons like the YJ-19.
I remember that name. That was the hypersonic missile from the parade in Beijing last year.
That's the one, a hypersonic anti-ship missile.
Okay, that word hypersonic gets thrown around a lot. What does it actually mean in this context?
It means speed and unpredictability. A traditional cruise missile is, relatively slow. A hypersonic moves at Mach 5 or higher, and it can maneuver erratically. It is incredibly difficult for U.S. carriers' defense systems to track and shoot down.
So their mission profile isn't about striking land targets globally.
No, they are building them to hunt other navies. This is what the report calls peer-level naval combat in the Western Pacific. They are tailoring a fleet to specifically neutralize U.S. carrier strike groups.
That feels like a huge shift. It's not about we want to go everywhere. It's about we want to own this patch of ocean.
It's a denial strategy. They're building a wall of sensors and shooters at sea. If you have a swarm of subs carrying hypersonic missiles, the risk calculation for a U.S. admiral entering the South China Sea changes completely.
All right, so let me play devil's advocate. I'm hearing more boats, faster production, hypersonic missiles. It sounds like game over for U.S. dominance. But is it that simple?
No, definitely not. And this is where we have to step back from the raw numbers. Because in submarine warfare, the supreme quality is silence.
The noise factor.
The noise factor. This is the Achilles heel of the whole Chinese submarine program. The latest updates are clear that despite all this new steel, the limiting factor for the plan is still acoustics.
So they're loud.
Relatively speaking, yes. The assessment is that both the Type 093 and Type 094 hulls are still significantly noisier than their Western counterparts.
How loud are we talking? Can you give me a comparison?
Well, the comparison used in the analysis drawing on U.S. Office of Naval Intelligence data is that they are comparable to late Cold War Soviet designs.
Late Cold War, so like 1980s technology for sound.
In terms of their acoustic signature, yes. And you have to understand the difference between 1980s quiet and today's quiet is the difference between a rock concert and a library.
Wow. It's that stark.
It really is. A modern U.S. Virginia-class sub is basically a black hole in the water. It can be quieter than the ocean's own background noise, but a sub with a 1980s noise level. To a modern sonar operator, that lights up their screen. They can hear it coming from miles away.
And if you can hear them,
you can track them and you can kill them. In a real conflict, a loud submarine is a dead submarine.
So how does that affect their behavior? They can't just go roaming the deep Pacific if they're that easy to spot. They'd be sitting ducks.
Exactly. This forces them into what strategists call the bastion strategy.
A bastion. Like a fortress.
A fortress at sea. The conclusion is that those Type 094 missile boats likely never leave the protected waters of the South China Sea.
They stay in their own backyard.
They stay where the Chinese Air Force is overhead and Chinese warships are on the surface. They create this safe zone, this bastion, to protect these noisy but vital assets from quieter U.S. hunter-killers.
That makes sense. But it also limits them, doesn't it? If you have to stay close to home, you can't really project power globally.
It limits them geographically, yes. But if your main goal is just to control the Western Pacific, maybe you don't need to be quiet in the Atlantic. Maybe you just need to be dangerous in the South China Sea.
That's a really important distinction. Okay, so bringing this all together, what's the big strategic picture?
The picture is a closing gap, but it's an asymmetric one. The gap in hull numbers is closing. The gap in missile tech with hypersonics might even be tipping in their favor in some ways.
But the stealth gap remains.
The stealth gap is still the U.S. and European trump card. That advantage in quietness and being able to operate undetected is what defines the strategic reality right now.
So a future conflict scenario would look like a swarm versus a ghost.
In a way, yes. You'd have this high volume of Chinese submarines trying to deny access to the Western Pacific, while U.S. subs rely on their superior stealth to slip inside that bastion and hunt.
It's a classic quantity versus quality standoff.
It is, but the scary part is that the quantity side is catching up incredibly fast. That industrial machine we talked about, it's running hot and it's not going to stop.
A sobering thought.
Oh.
The machinery is in motion. We have covered a lot today, from shipyards to sonics. It's clear the undersea domain is heating up, and the balance of power is definitely shifting. I want to thank you all for listening or watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please check out the other podcasts in our network. We've got some great shows that tie right into what we discussed today. But I'll leave you with this final thought. We know they have the speed in shipbuilding, and we know they have the hypersonics. The only thing holding them back is the noise. But technology evolves. If they solve the silence problem in the next 5 years like they solved production in the last 5, what happens then?
That is the billion-dollar question. See you in the next one.